This is I Only Touch Greatness Remix. Scan the code and follow.
Hey guys, it's Brendan Morrison here, former Vancouver Canuck. Stay tuned. I'm coming up on the You Only Touch Greatness podcast.
You tell us a good Cloutier story? I mean, my favorite memory of Cloutier, I mean, my least favorite, of course, is the goal from center, but we're not going to get into that. My favorite Cloutier story is when he was hammering Tommy Salo with like 30 shots in a row during the
He had the jackhammer going. He had the jackhammer going. Yeah, Klutz, he kind of got that out of his system. Well, I wouldn't say got it out of his system before he came to Van, because he was always like, when he put his gear on and stepped on the ice, it's like the switch just flipped, man. Like in the locker room, he had a totally different demeanor, like very laid back, approachable, like a lot of goalies you can't talk to on game day and leave me alone. But Klutz was always in there with the boys, always, throwing barbs, taking barbs. But once he stepped on the ice, man, like he was possessed out there and ultra competitive. And we love that from him as his teammate. And I know there's a couple times he came close to snapping there in Vancouver, but Klutz was he was underrated funny, man. Like a lot of great stories of him just, quick-witted in the locker room and that. But he definitely commanded respect.
That's for sure.
And then you kind of got to transition and see the Sedins started excelling at the beginning of their careers here. And what was that like?
Well, it was interesting because I got traded in on the deadline there, March of 2000. So I played 11 games with Vancouver, and then the season ended. And then the next year, my first full season was the Sedins' full season. So we actually had training camp in Stockholm that year, where we traveled over to Stockholm with 25 guys. So we essentially had our team picked before camp started. We had to make a couple cuts, but we knew pretty much who was going to be on the team. But that was a great camp as far as team building. 10 days in Stockholm, team building off the ice. And we worked hard in camp. And that was the first time we got to see Daniel and Henrik. And we'd heard so much about them, obviously, how prolific they'd been, their entire lives, and then growing up and playing in the Swedish Elite League. And expectations were huge. And you could tell right away how talented these guys were. But physically and mentally, mentally they were strong, but physically they weren't where they needed to be right away. They just weren't. And they'll be the first ones to tell you that. So it took them a couple of years to figure that out. And but they deserve everything they've accomplished, all the accolades. These are two guys that are phenomenal hockey players, but if you can imagine, even better people off the ice.
Yeah,
like these guys just work, man. They just put their nose down and work. Imagine how difficult the first couple of years was, how they were treated a lot of times in the press, fans. And I don't care what anybody says. That you hear it and it gets to you at times. But these guys were just, we're going to work harder. We're going to work harder. And that's what they did. And, they're so competitive, man. Like anything they do, whether it's pregame soccer, warming up, or juggling a ball, playing cards on the plane. Like these guys cannot stand losing. And that's why they had such phenomenal careers, is because of their, compete level and their just how much they don't like losing and not being successful.
So who's a better fisherman, you or Willie Mitchell?
Well, Willie's a good fisherman. He's a very good fisherman. He's been doing it longer than me. I will say that. He's probably got the edge on me, just because he has a little bit more experience doing it from a young age over on the island. I didn't get into fishing until a little bit later in my teens, early 20s. I might be a little bit more versatile as far as the fishing I've been able to do as far as traveling to some different spots, but he's a great salmon fisherman. And now he's got tuna fishing dialed in on the West Coast. Like, I think he might be the best sport tuna fisherman on the West Coast. He has the ability to cover so much ground in his boat, man, and he gets it done. So we have a lot of fun when we go out together.
I saw one of his posts. I think it was a couple of weeks back now. Maybe it could be a couple months back. But you and him with the absolute hog there, like that was a monster. I think it's on your Instagram.
Yeah, we actually were filming an episode for Real West Coast, the fishing show I host in Tofino here 3 weeks ago, and so Willie came on the boat for a day, and yeah, we had an awesome day. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, is that where you stay now? I thought you were in Calgary, perhaps.
Yeah, well, my family's had a place in Tofino for the last 16 years. I've been going over there as a kid since basically my mom was pregnant, walking around hiking. There's pictures of me in her stomach. But I try to spend a lot of time in Tofino as much as I can in the summertime. It's difficult. I got 4 kids and 2 are moving on to university this year. But sports as they get older, it kind of spills over into the summer. But we get out there for a amount.
I watched a bit of your salmon frenzy one, hammering some Chinook that you posted just recently, and I like to see the green flasher still the go-to.
It always gets the job done with Chinook, that green flasher, that chartreuse color. They like that.
Yeah, I was just up in Camel River like 2 weeks ago. I didn't end up getting out fishing this time, but I've been going since I was a kid. So my family friends own a place up there, so it's just constant fishing when we go usually.
Cool. Yeah, Camel River's really turned on here the last couple of years. Fishing's got really good.
It has.
If there was a $100,000 prize in the line and you had to sing one karaoke song, what song are you choosing?
I'm singing Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, Fishing in the Dark.
I like it. Any pre-game rituals or routines that you had?
I wouldn't call myself superstitious, but I had a routine, right? Like I would try and obviously getting dressed, always got dressed the same way. I always put like my left shin pad on before my right one. I always put my left skate on before my right one. The same thing, like kind of taking my skates off, I'd always take my left side before my right side. No other reason than that's just how I've done it my whole life. Pre-game meals, I'd always try to eat pretty much the same thing. I would always nap and set my alarm to get up at the same time and try to leave the house at the same time. So I guess you could call them superstitions, but if I was a minute off, I wouldn't be in shambles and my night would be ruined. I would just have, a routine, and I would try to stick as closely to it as possible.
That sounds about right. I'm out there doing that at beer league. I like to be there at least I like to say an hour and a half before game times. I like to shoot the shit with the boys. I like to be fully dressed about 20 minutes before a game so you can just sit there. Usually it's beer league, so that's when you crush your beer.
And getting dressed, like for me, I was always one of the last guys into the locker room with my gear on. I couldn't stand sitting in my stall with all my gear on and just kind of waiting for it. Like I would be in the gym doing my warm up, and I would come in every time on the clock. There'd be like 12 minutes before we stepped on the ice. So I'd come in, pretty much everybody was dressed or halfway dressed. I'd just fire my gear on and go. Where some guys, like I remember Soapy, like Brent Sopel, he'd be in a stall like dressed an hour before the game. So it's funny how guys are different.
I always like to be the first person in so I can take the end bench, the end spot, so there's only one person on one side of me.
Because he's a germaphobe.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want.
That's one benefit of being in the NHL. You got your own stall, right?
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
Really, you don't want nothing falling in my beers next to my thing.